How are you?
Better.
Lingering symptoms?
No, thank God. I will say I've been pretty lucky about, I have not made announcements to the world that my family has COVID at the moment and we're quarantined, but it's okay. And the experience that I had actually, I always like to have my own experiences with things. It's not as scary as people make it out to be. And to be honest with you, I don't know. Of course, there are some people who went through it in a much worse way, and I don't wish it upon anybody. It's not pleasant, but even if I had to go through it a little harder than I did, I would still prefer to go through it and avoid the lockdowns. I think actually by going through it now, I can assess that the reaction to it was a bit too much, even though it has consequences. But I think everything that we have gone through over a year, I would honestly prefer to stick it out. Just go through it, get sick, get the antibodies, and live a life. So, but this is just my opinion, and of course, everybody has their own. So, thank God.
I'm going through some kind of a virus, some kind of flu, but I just got the results of the test, and it's not COVID.
Thank God.
It almost felt like it, but it was not. So, we're both recovering.
Please take care of yourself, Rabbi Friedman. We really, really need you in good health and in good spirits. We're counting on you.
So, as a result of all the confusion and all the disappointments and disillusionments, we have learned that we cannot rely on politics, we cannot rely on science, we can't rely on medicine, we can't rely on any of the things we used to rely on. Add to that list self-image. We really relied on that a lot. If you have a good self-image, you'll be fine, you'll succeed, you'll do well. Everything depends on your self-image. Well, the self-image is flimsy because any little thing can take it all away in a minute. You can lose it so quickly that it can't possibly be something to lean on, depend on, and get strength from it. So just add that to the list. It was never something to rely on. It was a myth. So the story of Passover is that God not only wanted to take the Jews out of Egypt, but he wanted to take the ugliness out of Egypt, out of the Egyptians. And the ugliness was that they believed and worshiped and relied on dozens of things, all of them not reliable. So as one great leader said, the reason Jews are still around when others have disappeared is because the others depended on things that were themselves temporary. You depend on something temporary, then you become temporary. Jews always depended on things that were not temporary. They never trusted the temporary. And so they're not temporary. So what is not temporary? Family, tradition. It's like tradition can't stop. It can change, but it can't stop because time and experience make up tradition. Whatever it is your family or your ancestors went through, that's tradition, and it keeps on going. So it's reliable. And of course, the Torah. The Torah becomes more and more reliable every day. As other things fall away, the Torah stands out sharply as the most reliable, the most stable, the most certain. Because no matter how you translate it, somebody created heaven and earth. You want to know more about it? Read further. But that statement is already the truest of the true. So it's all a question of understanding the text, but everything, every word in the Torah is absolutely, permanently, eternally true. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be mentioned in the Torah. Because Torah doesn't mess with temporary things. So our self, our pride, our security in ourselves, it was always silly. And we know this from high school. You were a great kid in grade school and you thought you were the best, the greatest, the smartest. And then you come to high school and you're not so great and you're not so, and now what? So you convince yourself you're great, you're the best. Then you come to college and you're not. So you got to do it all over again. No, you got to convince yourself, you're the greatest, you're the best, Then you get a job and you're not very good at it. So what are you going to do? Keep inventing new gods. It was silly to begin with. So what is our security? What can we depend on and rely on? Our knowledge of right and wrong. Right is right, wrong is wrong, and that's always going to be that way. It is so stable, it is so secure, and it is so liberating. If I know which road I don't take, it makes it so easy to find the road that I should take. So if I know what's wrong and unacceptable, I am that much closer to what is true and acceptable. It's like getting married. I know who I don't want to marry. Well, that makes it easier. That narrows it down a little bit. In fact, the narrower the opportunity, the easier it is to get to where you need to go. When you have endless choices, you never get anywhere. So knowing what is wrong, knowing what is not allowed, is so helpful. It points you in the right direction. So right and wrong is where we get our strength from. I mean, picture a 7-year-old boy in a candy store. They used to have candy stores. Now it's practically any store. But there's a candy display. And this 7-year-old boy picks up a candy bar and he turns it over and he's looking for something and he doesn't find what he's looking for, so he puts the bar back. Eventually he goes through all the candies, he's not finding what he's looking for. He walks out of the store without a candy. This is Superman. What was he looking for? A kosher symbol. Because if it's not kosher, he won't eat it. That is a strong, secure, and confident boy. Does he think he's the best and the smartest? No. He doesn't need his ego to tell him who he is. He knows who he is because he knows where he belongs and where he doesn't belong, what's for him, what's not for him, what is right and what is wrong. That gives him a very strong backbone. You can't mess with him. That's where our strength should come from. And it should start very young.
Rabbi Friedman, a lot of people argue that if we don't have self-esteem or feel good about ourselves these days, we can be basically walked all over by others. This is the society today. So people started to treat their self-esteem as protection layer. It's just the world we're living in. Is there a counter argument to this position?
A very good argument. When you don't have a code, a moral code, then you have no choice but to rely on your self-esteem. But that's desperation. That's grasping at straws. Because self-esteem is so flimsy. I think people should ask themselves a simple question. You notice what kind of fanaticism has developed over this virus? The violence. Somebody doesn't wear a mask, you can beat him up. You can bloody him because he's not wearing a mask. Is this not fanaticism? And look who has become fanatical. People who always criticized fanaticism, condemned it, always hated people who were fanatical, and now they are more fanatical than any. Of course, there's religious fanaticism. I'm not talking about in the olden days when they burned people at the stake. I'm talking about today. Religious people are fanatical. When's the last time you saw a religious person beating up a non-religious person for not being religious? I'm not talking about Saudi Arabia.
Hasn't happened in a while.
The fanaticism today about health, it is so ugly. It's shocking. It just brought out the hidden truth. People who are intolerant of fanatics are fanatical. And it makes sense?
Sure does.
But, giving yourself the license to indulge in your fanaticism to whatever degree, when nobody ever took it that far. Intolerance is nothing compared to this. So we really have to check on ourselves. What's happening to us? The most fanatical people in the past have become tolerant. And the most tolerant have become fanatical. See, that's all part of this process. Everything is becoming clear. No more hiding. People who were fanatics were hiding behind their anti-fanatical opinions. They can't hide anymore. Unfortunately, it leads to violence. It always leads to violence. Every little immorality will eventually explode into the ultimate immorality, which is violence. So we're really discovering truth. Self-esteem is not true. It's a concoction. And it comes from desperation. And the desperation comes from not having a moral code. When you don't know right from wrong, you have to protect yourself in some artificial make-believe fantasy way. That, of course, doesn't work.
Rabbi Friedman, there's no way to use self-esteem for the good because it is a driving force. I mean, when we make ourselves feel better, we seem to have more drive to do better and in a good way. I'm just thinking, is there any way that it could be used for the good?
It could. I guess essentially it's neutral. And what happens is good people will use their self-esteem to be good. Self-esteem doesn't make you good. And that's why those who are not so good will use their self-esteem to inflict problems on others. So it can go either way, but it doesn't produce anything. Now, what should be, talking about esteem, for what should we have esteem? Self-esteem? That's like talking to yourself. You do that too much, they put you away. You're not meant to talk to yourself. And you're not meant to love yourself. You're not meant to esteem yourself. That's self-worship. None of that is healthy. None of that is meant to be. So yes, we have esteem, and we should have esteem. But for what? For great people? For role models? And for our purpose in life. If you are respectful of your purpose in life, that will motivate you. Even if you're not motivated, that will get you up. I don't particularly care whether I succeed or not. I'm not the ambitious type. I don't have any big goals, but I got to do what I got to do. Right is right. I'm here for a reason. I can't just retire and sit on the beach all day. So instead of self-esteem, we should have great esteem for the fact, just for the fact, I'm here for a reason. So it's my purpose that is admirable, worship-worthy. So I should worship not only my Creator, but the reason for which He created me. I should be in awe of that, not of myself.
Rabbi Friedman, since we're so close to Passover is the redemption, and also the fact that our great rabbis' birthday's coming up, and it's huge for Chabad. So I kind of want to put everything a little bit together and say that the Rebbe has always insisted for us to wait for Mashiach. This is the final stages before Mashiach, maybe already here, but or is about to arrive. And the same thing as Passover. It's about redemption. It's about, so basically my question is, and also the world in 1 year has turned upside down and really became extremely unbearable. And so many people are just there to wait for Mashiach, wanting the Mashiach, praying for the Mashiach, praying for the redemption. It's on everybody's mind. Doesn't matter if you're Jewish or not. And it's becoming almost actually impossible. I think people are becoming very, very anxious. And basically, my question is that an okay state to be? Because the further we go, the crazier things are. In the news, it's becoming more and more insane. I mean, to the point that where math is now racist and cartoons are being canceled, yet sex offenders are being freed. I don't know. It's just the world is just, it's just, the question is, when is it already going to be over and done with, because it's becoming absolutely impossible for any sane person to handle at this point. Where do we get the strength? What do we do? How do we act? And are we there yet?
The Rebbe actually was critical of people who believe in the coming of Mashiach. I'm overstating it a little bit, making it dramatic, but it's true. To the Rebbe, believing in Mashiach is so irresponsible and so impractical. It's juvenile. Yes, somebody's going to come and make it all good. No. You don't believe in something unless it's in your control, unless you can do something about it. But that which you can do nothing about, so what are you excited? It's irresponsible. What's exciting is not what's going to be, as nice as that is. What's exciting is what I can do, which means what I must do. So the coming of Mashiach is not something we wait for, hope for, and pray for. It's something we have to do and make it happen. Then it's not childish, it's not fantasy, and it's not irresponsible. On the contrary, it's another layer of responsibility. Not only do you have a personal mission for which you were created and born, but that mission can affect the whole world. Because if you can bring Mashiach, well, then the whole world benefits. Everybody. So, a very, very common question, commonly asked question. The whole story of the Exodus, God speaks to Moshe. Moshe speaks to Pharaoh. Pharaoh says no. Moshe comes back to God. He said no. God says, well, and go tell him that he's in big trouble. So he goes and tells him he's in big trouble. Pharaoh says, I don't care. Moshe comes back to God. He says he doesn't care. What is all of this? The main question is, why was Moshe necessary? God wants to take his people out of Egypt. So punish Pharaoh until he can't stand up anymore, and the Jews will leave. What's with all the dialogue? Tell him he better do it. He said no. Tell him again. He said no. Why bother with all that? Skip the middleman. Leave Moshe out of the picture. God needs a spokesman before he can punish somebody? He doesn't. He can punish whenever, wherever, and however he wants. So just destroy Egypt and Jews walk away. What's the complication here? Real freedom cannot come passively. You can't just all of a sudden be free. And then it's not a true freedom. If you want real freedom, you have to make it happen. You have to participate. As impossible as it seems, and no matter how many plagues have to come from heaven to actually make it happen, you have to participate. So Moshe comes to the Jewish leaders and says, let's start thinking freedom. And they couldn't hear it. They couldn't believe it. That was not good. This is not going to work. Sure, I can go beat up Pharaoh. What's that going to do for the Jews? I don't know if it's literally true, but imagine Pharaoh just dies. All the firstborn in Egypt just suddenly die. And Egypt just falls apart. Nobody cares anymore building houses, building storage houses. Nobody cares. Would the Jews leave Egypt? Probably not. Where are they going to go? They had no goal. There was no objective. Oh, we don't have to build anymore? Fine. Why would they leave Egypt? So the first thing that had to happen was a human being, Moshe, who was ahead of the game, who already understood that freedom is necessary in order to serve God, had to explain it to the Jewish people so that they start to yearn, at least, for that freedom and do something for it. So that when Pharaoh is destroyed, they're not left with an emptiness, with a vacuum. As soon as Pharaoh is destroyed, Jews know where they're going and why they're going and to whom they're going. So they left Egypt with a direction. They were headed for Mount Sinai for a very important meeting with the creator of the universe. So Moshe was absolutely essential. It couldn't come any other way. And that's why the Jews had to take a lamb and tie it to their bed and make a Seder with a Paschal sacrifice the night before they left. You got to start celebrating your freedom before you even have the freedom. Because if you don't celebrate it, then you don't appreciate it, then it's not yours. And that's the expression. You can take a Jew out of exile, but how do you get the exile out of the Jew? In order to get the exile out of our system, we have to participate in our freedom. And the same is true with Mashiach. And of course we have. For 3,000 years we've participated in bringing Mashiach. Everything we do. So what today should we do, can we do to move things along? I found online the writings of an ancient Kabbalist, Reb Chaim Vital, who was a student of the Ari, who was probably the ultimate authority on Kabbalah 300 years ago, 400 years ago. He writes how to behave during a plague. This pandemic is not the first in history. Mm-hmm. So he says like this, interesting little details. During the time of a plague, people should avoid each other, stay home, and don't bring anybody into the house. If you have to share food, bring the food to the house and put it down on the ground and let the other person come and take it. There's something about the ground that is healthy. Put it on the ground. And that takes away the virus, the plague. Because why wouldn't the food transfer the plague? Because you put it down on the ground and it cancels the plague. Something like that. But the main thing he says is that during a time of plague, The most important thing is you have to be optimistic, you have to be joyful, and you have to enjoy life. That's the prescription. It's not be happy anyway. You want to protect yourself from the plague, be enthusiastic about life. It's an ancient prescription. So, seeing what's going on, like you said, seeing what's going on can be so disheartening, can be so discouraging. Like, here we're trying to make the world better, and all of a sudden it just deteriorates and goes into the sewer right in front of our eyes. So what hope is there? You got to use that as part of your hope. It should encourage you.
How do you do that? I'm sorry, I need to ask. How do we do that? How do we use it to encourage us?
It is encouraging because exposed evil is the end of evil. There are evils that hide and get away with their ugliness and with their immorality because they're hiding. Communism was hiding for 70 years. It was idealistic, and it was going to make the world better, and it was better, right? To live under communism was so much better than the horrors of America. But then all of a sudden it's just communism. There's nothing good about it. It's just, that's it. It was over. And that was only 70 years, which means it didn't hide well enough. That was their mistake. On the other hand, there are religions that are just pure evil, but they're hiding behind God, behind the Bible, behind prophets, they've been hiding for thousands of years. Now that's a good camouflage. But no more. They're not hiding anymore. How long has democracy been hiding its evils? No more. So, when the game is over, it's just a matter of time.
Rabbi Friedman,
yeah, a very good analogy for it. In the story of Bobby Fischer, the chess genius, even as a child, so his father taught him how to play chess. One time they're playing, and it was the father's move, so the little boy went to the other room to play something else. His father is thinking and deliberating, and finally he says, "Bobby, are you coming back? We got to finish the game." And from the other room, Bobby says, "The game is finished." He says, "No, I can." Oh. And he realized it was checkmate. So the game was over, but it took the father a few minutes to realize that it's over. So that's where we are right now. The game is over. A lot of people don't realize it. So it's just a matter of time.
It is a bit hard to tell, but it seems that the evil is taking the most, is hitting the most vulnerable right now. It seems to be hitting the children, unfortunately. The children, I think, are being affected more than anybody lately. with everything, with education, with morality, even with the relationships with their parents. I mean, the sexual, I don't want to call it revolution or whatever it is, just last week, the case in Canada where a father was basically almost arrested for not allowing his 14-year-old daughter to go through the hormone therapy, which was supported by the government, the school, and everyone. And it's just, this is where it's very, very scary these days. And of course, we know that something is happening with the children. There are 1 million children missing a year, so many of them not found throughout the world, of course. Something is happening and no one is speaking about it. We're speaking about COVID and the numbers are not nearly even as scary as the numbers with the children. So this evil is there, but it's not fully revealed. And I think that is actually the scariest thing that is happening in the world today, and people are not talking about it.
They will. It's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. You can't hide anymore. Not with the internet. The internet is really a very powerful tool for truth. Not because the internet has what to say, but the internet doesn't allow hiding. And if you can't hide, you can't be evil. So yes, there are a lot of people who still need to catch on. And a lot of things need to be fixed. But that the game is over, the game is over. Evil has had it. And that's why when you look at the people who are in charge of this evil, it's almost like, what are they thinking? They really think they can get away with this? This is crazy. You don't realize that the game is over? You're a really bad chess player. Maybe you don't even understand the game. It's over. So go ahead, make your little plans and move your pawns. The game's over. So it should actually encourage us. It's a painful way of getting to the truth. A very painful way. Nobody wished it on anybody. Even the sages who knew exactly what it was going to be like said, I hope it happens quickly, but I don't want to be there. Somebody else go through that experience. I don't want to be there. So it is a very positive thing happening in a very painful way. And hopefully the pain is sufficient. And it doesn't have to get any bigger or any worse. The Rebbe kept insisting, Mashiach must come in pleasant and peaceful ways. The painful way, that's easy. The Rebbe wanted it to be in a pleasant way, in an enjoyable way. So we have to try. Try to find the enjoyment, the positivity, because that's the cure. It has always been, even in ancient days.
Rabbi Friedman, the question is, even though the game was over, how long will it take for people to find out that it's over? I mean, this end part, how long can it drag on? That is, I believe that is probably the scariest aspect of all.
Yes. Yeah. Question is, how dense and how thick can people be? But I see the positive. I see people everywhere saying, what in the world? Right? Like, yes. Come on, this can't be. And when that voice, that noise gets louder, this can't be. then we're coming to a good conclusion. If it can't be, then it can't be. Then it's over.
Rabbi Friedman, but weren't people saying that during Holocaust as well? How could that be?
Yes, but they were talking about a very specific thing. It wasn't pandemic. As you know, it was a world war. But the evil was only one evil. And when it ended, the war ended. And the world wasn't any different. But this time, it's everywhere, everyone. So if this changes, the world changes. Not has a ceasefire. The end of World War II was just a ceasefire. Could have flared up again at any time. So nothing was over except Nazism. Now the question is not who is evil. The question is what's not evil? Mm-hmm. What's true? What's good? What's life? Why are we here at all? And I think that's the most positive result of people who have been through COVID. They come out with an attitude about life that is completely different. For some reason, this I don't even know what to call it, this virus is an eye-opener. You come out of it with a completely different attitude about everything, not just about your health. Most people who have had a heavier experience actually felt like they had died and came back. Or some say they wish they had died, but they came back. So it's a whole new life. It's a whole new life. And as a result, all the temporary things we relied on are no longer interesting.
That's for sure.
Now they look temporary. They look flimsy. I relied on that once? That was what I was depending on? No wonder I was so insecure.
Rabbi Friedman, amazing, amazing. Another week of phenomenal wisdom. Just grateful every single week to have this opportunity to spend with you and to have you address our community. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, as always, the time flies by, but the amount of insight we got today is priceless. And thank you so much for giving us this every single week during Thank God It's Tuesday program. Rabbi Friedman, please feel well. And so much look forward to more wisdom, more insights from you next week. Thank you so much.
Yesterday, I went to a bar mitzvah. A 13-year-old Russian boy wanted a bar mitzvah. So they located a Chabad house nearby. And they taught him his bar mitzvah lessons. And they got him a pair of tefillin. The father decided, if my kid is putting on tefillin, why not me? So he put on tefillin for the first time in his life. And his father, the grandfather, said, oh, what am I? A stranger? If my kid and my grandchild are putting on tefillin, why shouldn't I? And he put on tefillin for the second time in his life.
Amazing.
A triple bar mitzvah. This is what's happening in the world. And there's no fanfare, and nobody's going to give him a medal, and they're not expecting any medals. They just want to be what Jews are meant to be. So if that's what Jews do, that's what they do. That's called truth. That's called reliable. Jews have been putting on tefillin for 3,333 years. That's a long time. And when we sit down to the Seder in 2 weeks, we're going to be eating matzah and making the bracha, thanking God for this mitzvah for the 3,333rd time. Talk about reliable.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you for the positivity and for so much light that you bring to us every week. Thank you. Hopefully everybody can take it in and contain it until we will meet again next Tuesday. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
More good news.
Amen. Amen.